we're going to get started. Thank you so much for joining us for today's information session on the virtual Italy Summer Abroad program. My name is Karen, and I'm the program manager of the Summer Abroad programs, and we are so delighted that you're here to join us and to learn more about this exciting new virtual program that we're going to be offering this summer. Although we're not all in the same area, I just want to acknowledge this land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit River. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. So we have a pretty jam-packed agenda today. What we're going to do is I'm going to provide some introductions first to let you know who's going to be involved in this presentation. Following that, I'm going to provide a very brief overview of the summer abroad programs, as well as the advantages of taking a virtual summer abroad program. Following that, we're very fortunate to have our professors each speak about their courses that they're going to be offering. Each of them will be speaking individually, and then you'll have a chance to ask questions after they speak. Following that, I will be covering the application process and next steps, the cost of participating in the Italy Summer Abroad program. And finally, we are fortunate to hear from Brianna, who is a past Italy Summer Abroad student who will be speaking about her experiences and she will be also explaining the advantages of taking a summer abroad course this summer. So just a few housekeeping things here. Just note that this is a Zoom webinar. As an attendee, you will not have access to your mic or your camera. So the best way to communicate and connect with us is through the Q&A function below. We're going to be answering any of your questions throughout the session, or we will remain till the end of the presentation or each course presentation to answer your questions. So please feel free to ask questions during the presentation. Please note that this session is also recorded, so the video will be sent to all attendees in a couple of days, and it will also be posted on our Summer Abroad website. Just a quick introduction. In addition to me, I have my colleagues, Wendy and Sarah, who are behind the scenes, and they're going to be answering the questions and also making sure that everything runs smoothly behind the scenes. We are very fortunate to have Professor Alberto Zambenedetti, Professor Giancarla Periti, as well as Professor Teresa Lobalsamo, who will be speaking individually about their courses. And again, we are very fortunate to have Brianna join us today and talk about her experiences in Italy. So getting started, what is Summer Abroad? The Summer Abroad programs are managed by the Summer Abroad office at Wordsworth College. And during normal times, we are located on the third floor of Wordsworth College at the St. George campus. Of course, during the pandemic, we're all working virtually. We are still accessible during office hours. We're very happy to communicate with you during the application process. The Summer Abroad program is an opportunity for students to take U of T courses that run between 3 to 6 weeks during the summer. Unlike taking a summer course, full year course, which is usually about 4 months, we offer an opportunity for you to take a course which is condensed and you get immersed into the course material within 3 to 6 weeks. You get to earn a full year Y credit, 1.0 full credit equivalent, which is not a transfer credit. So if you complete this course, it contributes to your CGPA. It also shows up on your transcript. So it's a very seamless process in terms of completing the course and contributing to your transcript and your CGPA. Each of our classes, on-site and virtual, are small. So there are about 18 to 30 students. And this is great because it gives you an opportunity to take an immersed course, but also get to know your fellow classmates very well and get to really know your professor very well. So it's a great opportunity to have that very unique experience, to have a very small class while taking this course. Because it's a U of T course, you get to fulfill program, breadth, or distribution requirements. All of our courses in Italy, all 3 of them, are taught by U of T faculty. You get to learn from U of T faculty, you get to know them. We also have all of our U of T faculty that teaches in our programs are very passionate. They really care about the students and the subject matter and their research. So it's a very great opportunity to be fully immersed in the subject matter as well as to get to know the U of T professor more. So again, you get to work closely with your professor and your colleagues while taking part in summer abroad courses. So of course, this year is a bit different. We are going through the COVID pandemic. The university announced that there will be no travel permitted until August 2021. And because of that, we're not able to offer our typical on-site courses, but we have modified a few of our summer abroad courses to virtual programs and courses for this summer. So the virtual courses will still follow all of the same main advantages of taking a summer abroad course, such as having smaller classes, allow for more discussion, having condensed immersive format, we still offer some benefits of offering virtual courses. In addition to that, you get to experience what you learn. So you have virtual field trips, and you have a chance to connect with guest speakers and local experts abroad to complement the course. So you have an international perspective to what you're learning. You also gain a meaningful cultural experience at a fraction of the cost. So obviously, because you're not traveling, you don't have to pay for flights or accommodation, insurance, or any other travel expenses. And because of that, taking this virtual summer abroad course is much cheaper than taking a usual on-site summer abroad course. And lastly, it's accessible. So you get to gain a global education experience within a space that meets your needs and learning environment. So you have the flexibility to learn and take this course from any location. So the first time you could take a summer abroad course from anywhere in this world and still gain a credit and gain all the advantages of taking our courses. There are also professional benefits. So you get to build a global network. You get to have global awareness and skills as well. A lot of employers nowadays really look for global experiences, virtual or on-site. This will definitely contribute to your academic experience. You get to dip your toes in an international experience and explore possibilities for graduate school. So if this is a subject matter or a destination that you're really interested in, this will be a great foundation for you if you are considering moving forward with this subject matter in graduate school. And lastly, personal development. You make lifelong friends. So because of the small class environment, you really get to know your fellow classmates. And classes are also comprised usually students from different campuses, colleges, departments. So you really get to meet other fellow U of T students where you don't necessarily have the opportunity to do so when you're taking a regular U of T course. You gain communication and presentation skills, and you gain a meaningful cultural experience. And again, you build a foundation or global gateway to future travel. So after taking an FAH course or cinema studies course in Italy, you will really be well versed of the sites, the subject matter. So once it's safe enough to go to Italy, you'll know exactly where to go. You'll have prior knowledge to the subject matter as well. So before we get our professors to speak about their courses, as I mentioned, summer abroad courses are very unique because of its condensed and immersive experience. For the Italy program in particular, you gain a full Y course in a condensed 4 to 5 weeks of study. So we are offering 3 courses. All 3 of them are around 4 to 5 weeks. Each course has different date ranges. So we'll talk more about that when we investigate each of the courses in a couple of minutes. It'll be 4 to 5 weeks of study. It's generally from Monday to Thursday. I believe the Italian studies course is from Tuesday to Thursday. You get to focus only on one course. So it's a more condensed schedule. As I mentioned, you could take this course from any location of choice. A few things to keep in mind: attendance to virtual lectures and virtual activities, field trips, etc. are mandatory. Because of its condensed nature, we want to make sure that you're there each time, and it's mandatory for you to attend each of the lectures and field trips. You cannot take summer abroad virtual courses at the same time as a regular U of T online course. If your course for this program is mainly in August, you cannot take another U of T virtual course in August as well because of its immersed and condensed format. And because it's a virtual course, we want to make sure that all students have computers with working webcams and microphone and a reliable access to the internet. So now we're going to get started with our courses. This is the order that we're going to be presenting our courses. So up first, I'm going to be asking Giancarla Periti to present on her course on studies abroad in Renaissance and Baroque art and architecture. Before Giancarla starts, I just want to mention that, again, we have the Q&A function below. If you have any questions, especially course-related questions, please feel free to ask the questions while the professor is speaking. She will have the opportunity to answer the questions after her presentation. Most of the professors will be leaving after they speak, so this is the best time for you to ask any questions that you may have. Giancarla, when you're ready, I invite you to turn on your video as well as your microphone, and I will give you remote control access in a few few seconds.
Good afternoon to each and everyone. It's my great pleasure to be here to talk in more details about this virtual Italy Summer Abroad course. It's an art history course, and so the best way to do so is actually to begin to look what we will be studying together. This course is special in many different ways. One of the ways is special is because of his long chronology. We will begin, as you can see here, from the early Renaissance, which is usually a corpus that is not so well investigated in standard courses. Instead, we will start there. So the foundation of Renaissance art in Siena, amazing frescoes by Simone Martini and Ambrogio Lorenzetti. So we will have this entry into this painted palace, which is still functioning as a political center in Siena. After that, we will be moving into a court, Mantua, and then we will be talking about another painted room, another painted space for the Gonzaga in Mantua, where we will have the opportunity to actually talk about the ceiling here, this illusionistic oculus in the ceiling, so to see a development in the art of painting in Italy. Something that I should have said at the beginning is that this course is structured by media. Each week we will be talking about an artistic medium. So the first week, as you can tell, will be about painting and the development of the art of painting in Renaissance Italy. And then there will be Rome, and Rome will be for us an opportunity to enter into the Vatican's painted room, what is not usually so well studied. And so the third room that Raphael and his workshop painted in the Vatican, as you can see on the left. And then to go into the Farnesina, this wonderful ensemble of mythological paintings. So the first week will be about painting. Then we will move into the art of sculpture. What is really special about this course that Karen has briefly mentioned is that in this case, we will enter virtually into the Bargello, but not by ourselves. We will enter into the Bargello with a guest speaker who is the director of the Bargello Museum in Florence. So we will have a virtual tour of the main galleries in the Bargello, an opportunity to admire and talk about Michelangelo's works that you see on the screen. And then after this virtual tour, the director of the Bargello agreed to offer a short presentation and then to have a conversation with us. And so students can ask questions about, for example, what does it mean to run a museum? What are the problems in order to display a work of art like Michelangelo's Bacchus? The pedestal, how high it should be, or not. So this kind of questions that usually you don't happen to focus in a normal course. And of course, it's an amazing opportunity to really to see how a museum functions, but also to see how it is managed, what are the problems of conservation, for example, of culture, how an exhibition is mounted. So there will be, of course, readings that you will be supplied in advance. And so this kind of conversation, you will come at the conversation also informed about topics. And then it's a dialogue. It's a dialogue among us and our guest speaker in our classroom. And so second week is about sculpture and the development of the art of sculpture in Renaissance Italy. After the Bargello, of course, we will travel virtually virtually to Padua, we will have the opportunity here to examine masterpieces by Donatello there. I just want to mention the combination between, so the end of our week on sculpture will end with fountains. Fountains, of course, they embellish squares, and they are part of the environment, but they were also works of sculpture. And so we will particularly look into Bernini's fountains in Rome. And this will help us to transition to the following week, which is dedicated to the art of architecture. And clearly, because we are in Rome, I thought that the best comparison and the best way to talk about architecture would have been to look into St. Peter's Basilica, Michelangelo, and other key architects. Michelangelo, of course, was an eminent architect, but also a sculptor, a painter, so a kind of universal artist. But what we will learn together more will be also about Michelangelo's drawings. We will have a virtual visit to the Casa Buonarroti in Florence, which is the repository of Michelangelo's drawings. Michelangelo's last name is Buonarroti, and the Casa Buonarroti was established by his heirs with the corpus of Michelangelo's works and drawings. A curator from the Casa Buonarroti will join us. We will have this virtual visit with the curator, and then once again, the same kind of structure, conversation, dialogue, opportunity to ask questions to the Casa Buonarroti's curator. Another week will be about decorative arts or applied arts, or also known as minor arts, but that's an incorrect label. We will see how and why these multiple labels and some incorrect were generated. In that week, we will be looking into ivories. We will be looking into maiolica items. We will have a virtual visit to one of the best museums in Italy that has superlative collection of ivories, maiolicas, and so forth. The Gallerie Estense in Modena, the director of the Gallerie Estense will offer a virtual tour into the galleries, and then she will be available for our conversation. So she will be available to answer questions. She will be available to expand on multiple topics. I think I stop here, and then I can take questions.
Great. Thank you so much. We do have a few questions here. I'm an architecture student. Can I take this course, and will it be counted in my program requirements? There is a prerequisite for this course, half course in Renaissance or Baroque art and architecture. If you're an architecture student, I'd say yes, please apply for this program. You probably you are eligible to apply. However, we do recommend that you do speak with the undergraduate coordinator in architecture or college, etc., just to make sure that this course goes into your intended reasoning of taking the course. So we do encourage you to apply, and again, check in with your undergrad office coordinator just to make sure that is counted towards your program requirements. The next question here is, will there be virtual field trips? Will these visits take place during class time?
Yes, because in fact, these virtual visits to museums are also virtual trips. And so we will be in Florence, and then because in that week we will be discussing, let's say, sculpture in Florence, and then at the Borgello, we will enter there the director. So it's a virtual visit, it's a virtual trip, and then after that we will have the platform for our conversation and discussion with the director. So yes.
Is there any group work in this course?
I have still to design exactly the structure of the course, but I can say probably some, though, because there will be also assignments. So I have only presented the content, what we will learn together, and the learning experience experience. There will be assignments, of course, because it's, as you said, UFT course. And so probably also some group work and then some individual work. So a combination. I can be more precise if the student emails me, we can have a meeting, and then once we progress, then there will be a syllabus and so forth.
Any updates will be posted on our website.
Yes.
Or we'll communicate with admitted students once we have the confirmed information. One more question. I don't have the prerequisite. Can I still apply? The answer to this is yes, we do encourage you to apply. We do give preference to those who have the prerequisites. So if you're a fine arts student, an architecture student, there is a section on the application which is free text. You could let us know about other kinds of academic experiences that you may have. You may be a Renaissance studies student, enough experience to take this course. So if you don't have the prerequisite but still are very keen to take this course, we do encourage you to still apply for this course and just explain to yourself more the reasonings why you want to take it. Thank you so much, Giancarla, for speaking more about your course. It sounds very exciting. If there's any other questions for Professor Periti, please feel free to email us, or you could email her directly. We'll be more than happy to help you, especially these next couple of weeks before applications are due. So thank you once again.
My pleasure.
We'll be hearing more about ITA 358, 359 on modern Italian culture. So if Teresa Lobalsamo, please turn on your camera as well as your mic.
Let me just start by saying that I'm really excited to give you a snapshot of ITA 358, 359. I was just looking through the participants' names in the chat, and it's really wonderful to see names that I recognize, and I'm really excited to get to know the ones, hopefully, that I don't recognize immediately. So I'm just going to go off video and then start sharing my screen. Just one second. And fair warning, there's a video to open my presentation, so you might want to lower the volume on your end, because for some reason it just blares. Just lower the volume a little for yourselves.
Guarda come dondolo con il twist, con le gambe ad angolo, ballo il twist. Sarà perché io dondolo, saranno gli occhi tuoi che brillano, ma vedo mille lucciole venirmi incontro insieme a te. Guarda come dondolo con il twist, con le gambe ad angolo, ballo il twist. Le ginocchia scendono, le mie gambe tremano, forse sono brividi d'amore.
So just to get an idea of where you're coming from, I am interested in knowing whether or not the courses that you've taken remotely over the past year or so, whether any of them have included live virtual trips. And that's just a sort of curiosity that I have. So I welcome you right now. Do you have access to the chat, not the Q&A, but the chat? If you have access to the chat, I'd love to be able to see whether or not you've had some virtual live experiences in your courses. That's just for me. So feel free to, just pop a yes or no into the chat. I'd love to see those. Okay. That video, by the way, was a reflective sort of journal diary that a few students created the last time we were all away together, as you probably gathered. But I am finding that there are real upsides to being virtual. And it's, it's not just avoiding things like 48 degrees of heat or something like that. But, students can't always be away for a month. And sometimes we want to bring you into places that are off limits. Whatever, there's not enough time or money to show you everything we want to show you. But this way, by seeing Italy remotely, we actually are going to see way more than we could have in person, and not just in a few areas of the country, but throughout Italy from north to south. And so with that, I'm going to start by quickly talking about how this course is designed around live experiences, since they are really focal to what we learn and how we learn it. ITA 358/359 is really built around the benefits of experiential learning to offer paths to deeper learning for you. And that is to say that in this course, we're going to reflect on the relevance of what we're learning in class by participating in real-world applications of lecture content on several field trips. Unlike what happens in a large class, especially if it's in person, we will have increased opportunities to interact during class, during discussions, breakout groups, and even on assignment. Speaking of assignments, those too are experiential. They are directly tied to what you discover in class and on field trips. And assignments are really meant to be motivational. They're there for you to investigate topics you like most. And so for that to work, the feedback that you get on them is going to be frequent, it will be timely, and it will always be constructive. The aspects of Italian culture that we're going to delve into through that active participation and the field trips include topics like unification, world wars, immigration and emigration, politics, economy, visual and literary arts, major Italian industries like cars, fashion, and we'll cap off the course with a talk about Italian food studies. In terms of delivery, our course will be on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And each of those days, so every lecture, in other words, is coupled with a live experience that expands on something you're learning in class, or that supplements a topic, which is simply better experience as firsthand as we can make it, given the circumstances. And then as I move through this presentation, I will show you how each tour fits into the lecture schedule. But in a nutshell, we'll walk through Vatican City, the Roman Forum, Siena, Orvieto, Cinecittà Studios, Milan's Fashion District, the Ferrari Museum, various food production facilities. We will have film screening parties as well as a cooking class. The course begins with an overview, how the country came to be during its years of unification. On day one, we'll also talk about economy, key aspects of the language, and those key aspects of language also necessarily include an analysis of Italian gestures and proverbs and superstitions. If you've all done your iOS update, then you should have that Italian emoji that essentially translates to like, what are you doing? What the heck are you doing? I cleaned it up for you. And then you'll also get some context for that image that you see there. Again, please feel free to use the chat. So in English, we say, to wish oneself good luck or hope that something goes well, we say knock on wood, right? Does anyone know what we say in Italian? We don't say knock on wood. We use another material. Does anyone have an idea? I welcome your contributions to the chat if you can, or the Q&A if you don't have that function. In any case, virtual tours on this day are going to take us through the center and the capital of the country, Rome, where we will see, for example, Vatican museums and the Vatican Forum. Moving along, that overview continues the next day. And here we'll also investigate the town that we're normally physically part of during the summer abroad program. And I'll just post some true and false questions that allude to the topics we'll be looking into, but I will not reveal all of the answers because I'll get to do that with you during the course. First question. Siena is divided into 17 contrade, but they all share the same traditions. I will give you a bit of a hint. I'm not going to give you, I encourage you to sort of seek out those answers and then, come to my class and find out whether or not you had them down. Have a chance to talk about in class as well. Siena's famous Palio race lasts on average 2 hours. It's a huge event. It's a focal event. How long do you think it lasts? Is 2 hours an accurate number? Next, the oldest bank in the world, Monte dei Paschi, was established in Siena. We'll find out, and we will find out naturally on this lecture day by experiencing Siena's history, traditions, and those contributions to society on our walking tour of its streets and its sites. August 5th kicks off our Arts Week, and we will look at major Renaissance art. We will read excerpts from important works from several eras covers, from medieval all the way up until now, 21st century literature. Live virtual tours on these days take us into the Uffizi and Accademia galleries in Florence, as well as through some medieval towns, one of which is the magical Civita Bagnoregio in the region of Lazio. Based on the clues you see and hear, what do we delve into next? Again, there is going to be some sound, so make sure you have your finger on that control. And I'm just going to post the clues and then I'll start talking again in a second. Can everyone hear me okay if the music is on just really low in the background? Maybe Karen or Wendy, you can let me know if that's okay.
Sounds good.
Thanks very much. Okay, so let me go back to that, and if the music starts again, then you'll just have the tune memorized. So on this day, of course, we will talk about cinema. We'll take a historical dive into Italian cinema. We'll analyze some of its genres or styles like neorealism, as well as movies that treat the subject of the mafia. And by the way, this is something that I do in all of my courses, and I'm certainly going to integrate it here. I want my students to have a say in the learning experience. And so that means that I'm going to get you to choose a film that maybe you're most curious about, have always wanted to see or analyze, and I'm going to make that one of our lectures. So you'll get to choose one of the films that we talk about in the course. Live virtual experiences take us back to Rome this day and to the sites of some of the most famous spots that graced the big screen, as well as to the Hollywood of Europe, Cinecittà movie studios. August 24th to 31st, we'll round out the course with a focus on Italian industries, fashion and cars, through the streets of Milan's fashion district and the Ferrari Museum. These particular experiences, just a quick side note, are prime examples of excursions that we actually had to cancel last year because they just weren't feasible to do in person. So we'll get to do them this year virtually. We will conclude with the vast area of food studies and attempt to answer the question as we tour various facilities. What is Italian food exactly? Here you will also get to choose from a selection of lecture topics that you want me to talk about, that you want us to discuss, as you did with cinema. And so we'll walk through facilities like Parmigiano Reggiano, balsamic vinegar, and no discussion of food would be complete if we didn't get to cook something ourselves. And so we are arranging a mail out to you that is going to be basically a cooking kit full of everything you would need to compose a famous Italian dish. And we're going to do that separately, but in some way we'll be together with the guidance of a chef. I alluded to coursework earlier, and I'm not going to go into too much detail about it, but I will mention again that coursework is going to be made up of shorter formative assignments that again reflect lecture and live experience content. These small assignments will be useful for example, previewing something that you'll be studying in an upcoming lecture or tour, or they'll be useful for reviewing something you learned. In other words, nothing is done just for the sake of assigning a grade. I want it to be meaningful. And so you'll choose to conduct further research on an aspect of a class or a tour that you found particularly interesting for whatever reason. Maybe it was something that, changed your mind about an original opinion. Maybe it's something that's very similar to or even different from your own experiences, so on and so forth. So on that note, I will conclude, but please feel free to email me. My email address is there on the screen for you. If you do have any questions, or of course, I'll be here for the Q&A right now, but otherwise, I do kindly thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Teresa. I'm just going to look to see if there's any questions here for you. Will all virtual experiences be in English? Will there be any activities planned outside of class time?
As of right now, no, there are none scheduled outside of class time. That might change within reason, but as of now, no. It'll be 2 hours of class followed by 2 hours of live tour, or 2 hours of live tour and then 2 hours of lecture. The other question, yes, they're all going to be, the course is conducted in English, of course. All of the tours are conducted in English as well.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? So one student says not a question, but the course sounds super exciting. Thank you for your feedback. That's great.
Thank you, student. I don't have your name, so I can't address you personally.
Okay, well, Teresa did share her email address. You're more than welcome to email us too. If you have any questions, we could relay that to her. Okay, and lastly, we have CIN 378. This is Aspects of a National Cinema. I'm going to be inviting Alberto Zambenedetti.
Welcome to the presentation for the Italian Cinematic City, a Grand Tour. This is a cinema course that I have designed based on two experiences. The first one is teaching abroad, and which I have done, many years ago, and in several instances, primarily in Florence and Venice. And the second, so that's a personal experience where I would take students on tours of, these two major Italian cities. And the second experience is actually a somewhat intellectual one. That is, it has to do with my research. In about a decade ago, I started being interested in location studies. And location studies is a subfield of cinema studies that sort of flips the script on films. And instead of thinking about, the film's form and, performance or stardom or many of the sort of approaches to film that are possible, it kind of thinks about where the film was shot and what the film does with that location and the effect, the impact that, the film having been there in the first place, the crew, the production, and so on and so forth, does to the location itself. So I have edited two books in the collection World Film Locations Florence. I've edited the Florence volume in 2013 and then the Cleveland volume in 2016 because I was living there at the time. And I have also collaborated to the volume that focuses on Venice and the volume that focuses on Rome. This is a large series. It's over 40 volumes that are interested in understanding what film does with cities. And of course, that depends a lot on the cities themselves. Some cities lend themselves being domesticated and being transformed in other places. Toronto, for instance, is a perfect example of that, a city that sometimes plays other cities. And by working on the Venice, Florence, and Rome movies, I've learned that essentially those places don't lend themselves to do that at all. Essentially, Venice is always Venice, Florence is always Florence, and Rome, of course, is unmistakably always Rome. So these books have two primary possible uses. One of them, of course, is they're tour guides. They're the descendants of the Baedeker, which was a little book that you would carry around when you would be a grand tourist around Europe that had all the important locations that you were supposed to see. And these books are organized about, in the same way. They have locations and itineraries. They have little maps that you can follow in your walks through these cities that take you to, where movies were shot. And sometimes that's right by a big monument, like you can see here in the Trevi Fountain in the cover of the Rome volume, or sometimes can be a parking lot, or a factory, and so on and so forth. So these books kind of deviate from the idea of the classic tour guide already in that way. And they're compounded of 250 words, little, detailed descriptions and analyses of a specific scene in which location appears, and longer essays that kind of reflect on the kind of nature of the city, be that historical city or, a certain kind of type of film that's shot in that city. The other purpose of these books, of course, is for armchair tourism, which is essentially when you can't go travel, you cannot physically visit a place, and you have to appreciate that place from the comfort of your armchair. Now, given that this year, this course will have necessarily to be virtual and taught remotely, these books will perform precisely that function. They will be virtual Baedekers in a sense. They're virtual, books for armchair tourism. Now, what does that mean now to think about location as opposed to just, as opposed to thinking about films according to somewhat more traditional models that might look at their genre or their politics and so on and so forth. And one place that we can start thinking about, where we can start thinking about these issues is, for instance, where, when people return to the location and they decide to document the fact that they were there, so see the picture of me near, this famous sculpture. The fact that it's a famous sculpture, becomes part of becomes kind of like secondary, because what we're really standing there is because maybe James Bond was there at some point in one of the films. So this is a photograph that kind of puts that framework, into motion, that begins to kind of interrogate what it means to think about location, as opposed to think about places as film locations, as opposed to just, to tourist site and so on and so forth, because some of them are not. One thing that film does when it visits a place, and I've chosen Roman Holiday as it is somewhat of a quintessential example of what a tourist film is. One thing that a film does when it visits a location is to activate a number of different industries, and it creates certain kind of imaginary and a shared imaginary about that particular place. So this film, for instance, launched, Audrey Hepburn's career, and it becomes, integral to the narrative of the way, Vespas, for instance, the famous Italian, scooters became this kind of like global international icon of a certain kind of Italian style, a certain kind of Italian fashion, a certain kind of Italian food culture, all of the things that, Teresa was discussing earlier. And these two courses are somewhat related to each other in that respect, because they both have a very strong affiliation or desire, at least, to explain the land in its manifestations, be that culture, be that the arts, and be that in this particular case buildings, architecture, streets, and so on and so forth. One thing that this does, it generates interest in the way culture, films, and places have been shown by the film. One thing that might happen in the history, in the longer history of a film that's produced in a place, is that the film returns to that place and is screened for an audience that starts to see sort of like the history, begin to accumulate, and the ways the place has changed between when the film was shot and then when it was shown in the same location. It might generate the famous listicles. I don't know if they're even called that way anymore, but they're, this internet content that keeps kind of, generating questions about films that have a certain kind of import in the history of world cinema. And of course, they continue to be related to the location where they were shot. Another thing, and that you can see then that, these lists and this online attention and so on and so forth, also generate an idea of what it is to have a quote unquote Roman holiday that begins with the film and then, kind of lives its own life online. And then, of course, when someone is lucky enough to be able to travel there in person. So here we have, suggestions of walking tours, for instance, on how to experience the city in the same way as Audrey Hepburn might have experienced it, as a character in Roman Holiday. And, and here you have another picture, of course, of, Hepburn with Gregory Peck at the Spanish Steps, in Rome. But of course, the Spanish Steps is a kind of place that supersedes, that exceeds, the experience of one film. Many films were shot there. For instance, The Talented Mr. Ripley, a film that was shot in 1999. So what does it mean then when all of these layers, of film history become intertwined with these monuments, with these larger, structures that, of course, have their own storied history, that they live somewhat sort of like independently from the films? What does it mean when suddenly the cinematic machine enters that conversation? In some cases, those two things become, almost inseparable. The discourse that surrounds the Dolce Vita for instance, the 1960 Federico Fellini film and the history of the Trevi Fountain are at this stage in our consciousness completely inseparable. We cannot see one without the other. So these are some of the questions that the course will try to discuss, if not necessarily answer, but at least bring up by visiting all these different locations throughout the city. Some of them may be immediately recognizable, some of them may be more pedestrian corners. And then we will think about, of course, what does it mean to do this digitally? What does it mean to do it virtually? And the course, I'm still ironing out the details with some friends back in Italy, back at home, but the course will be accompanied by some walking tours, much like Teresa's course is, and perhaps we'll have some guest appearances by filmmakers. Like I said, I'm still trying to iron out the details about this. But of course, we are essentially doing armchair tourism digitally. We're doing it through digital devices. So I figured that this would be a good point to kind of like understand what it means to actually visit a place through a tablet. What does it mean to have a tangible location? So we will also discuss this phenomenon, the largest phenomenon of cinematic tourism in a more sort of like intellectual, quote unquote, way. And this is, I forgot how gruesome this one is. This is Hannibal, the very good show actually that you can now see on Netflix. And here's, a Hannibal of 2001 Hannibal, Ridley Scott, on the characters designed by Thomas Harris. Interestingly, there is a brand new show that's streaming on Global Eve, is part of this universe, a new show called Clarice comes out of one of the books in the Thomas Harris series, and the book is Silence of the Lambs. The series is set in the United States, but it's shot in Canada. It's shot in Hamilton and in Toronto, shot around here in Ontario. Once again, showing that location is both identifying and deceptive, but it is something that we need to think about when we think about the way film kind of like is interconnected globally with cityscapes, landscapes, urbanscapes, and architecture. So that's kind of the larger kind of like arc of the film and the questions, of the course, the kind of questions that the course likes to ask. The overall organization of the course is that we're going to meet daily from Monday through Thursday, and we're going to discuss a film every day, with the exception of a couple of days when we're going to do field trips, virtual field trips, of course. As far as assignments go, we are going to essentially reproduce the same exercise that we, myself and all the contributors to the World Film Locations books did, which is write short blurbs, packed, concise, well-written, that's very important, blurbs about certain specific locations that we identify in the films that we're going to watch. It's unclear whether we are going to do the films synchronously, that is, we're going to watch them together and then we're going to discuss them, or, and this would be my preference, but of course it requires a lot of technical support that I'm trying to secure, if we're going to do them asynchronously, which is we are going to have the films on an external hard drive, essentially a cloud. We're going to watch the films individually, gather the next day to discuss the films, and that discussion can take the form of guided questions, group work, lecture, and so on and so forth. So this is the structure of the course. It falls within one of my areas of expertise. So I hope you will be interested in taking it. Any questions about the course, feel free to reach me at my U of T email, Alberto Zambenedetti@utoronto.ca.
Thanks very much. We do have a few questions here. Will the films and readings be available on Quirkus?
Readings will be available on Quirkus, with the exception of the textbooks, because those, you will have to either purchase or find through library website. I will ask the library to, of course, purchase the digital rights, but sometimes that's not immediately possible. The films, like I was saying, I'm trying to iron out some details because some of the films, it's a bit tricky with copyright issues. I'm going to say that the majority of them will be available through one of the U of T streaming platforms. So the films will be made available to you either by U of T or by myself. I can go to the next question. I don't have any prior experience with film theory or history. Can I still take this course? Yeah, certainly. It's not an issue. If you'd like to, maybe get started, have, some idea of what we're going to talk about and the things that maybe, might be useful to know, please feel free to, email me. I can give you a couple of references, books or documentaries or things to watch that might give you a sense of what we're going to do. See, another question, are all film screenings in English? Yes and no. They're all subtitled in English. All the films will be subtitled. Some of the films are in Italian with English subtitles. Some of the films are in other languages with English subtitles. But yes, they are all subtitled. The classes will be in Toronto time. The lecture will be synchronous. The lecture part of this course will be synchronous. The screenings, we're still deciding on those. They might be synchronous or asynchronous, but either way, you should make sure that you can attend a synchronous lecture in the morning, Toronto time, that is, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And thank you, anonymous attendee that says that it sounds pretty interesting, smiley face. I appreciate that. Yeah, I really hope it does. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alberto. If there's no other questions, again, feel free to email our office and we're more than happy to relay any questions that you may have for the professor. So thank you so much. It sounds really interesting. And yeah, thanks for your time.
Thank you so much, Karen.
We're just going to move forward here. We're just going to get to the technical aspects of applying. So who does a summer abroad? And in terms of eligibility, it's open to all U of T students and alumni. You must be in good academic standing and completed a term at the time of application. Your CGPA should be above 1.75 to be considered for our programs. So basically, if you're not on probation or under suspension, visiting students can also apply as well. If you have any friends in Canadian universities who are interested in any of these courses, they're more than welcome to apply as well. It will just involve a letter of permission as well as transfer credits. Preferences will be for U of T students, but other visiting students are more than welcome to apply for our courses as well. Each year, we do have visiting students that do take our courses. Our applications are open now at summerabroad.utoronto.ca. The application deadline is March 1st, 2021 at 5 p.m. So in terms of selection process, participants are selected based on a set of criteria, and it's not done on a first come, first served basis. Just as long as you submit your applications by March 1st, we will be looking at each application individually and equally as well. We will be looking at academic suitability. So basically your CGPA in the last 12 months of study. You don't have to submit any marks. We do have access to the transcripts. In addition to that, we do look at a personal statement in response to some questions that are on our application. So basically we ask you why you're interested in this course, and it just gives you more of an opportunity to let us know, how it will fit into your academic experience as well as your plans. We do take the academic suitability and personal statement quite equally. So you could start an application, work on your personal statement, go back to it. Just as long as you submit it by March 1st, it should be good. And the last step is to submit a $200 application fee. You pay for this online through a credit card, and this application fee will be refunded to you if you're not selected for the course or the program. And there's a separate application and fee for each program. So you will have to pay $200 for Italy. If you're interested in a program in China, then you have to pay an additional $200 application fee for that program. So this is what our online application will look like specifically for Italy. It's a pretty easy, seamless process. You choose your course of choice. You have to make sure that you read the prerequisites. We do give you a free text area to let us know what other academic experiences that you may have. Again, you have room for your personal statement, and then you pay for your application fee. You want to make sure you submit your application after you pay to make sure that whole process is complete. Notifications for this program will be sent out starting in late March to early April. We're going to be looking at all our program applications after March 1st. So we're going to try our best to work hard and send out those notifications as soon as possible. Different programs will be notified at different times. Just keep that in mind. If you are accepted, you'll have 1 week to confirm your participation by paying a non-refundable $500 deposit. So that's basically telling us that you're confirmed, you're going to be taking this course in the summer. If you decline the offer, you will not get your application fee back. Remaining fees are due roughly 4 weeks after the deposit is due. And again, this varies depending on the program. So financing your summer abroad, if you look at our summer abroad website, you'll get to know the cost of each of our programs. We do ask you to start budgeting now. Again, as I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, there are a lot of factors that will not be into account with a virtual summer abroad, such as accommodations and flight. It's a bit more streamlined in terms of costs. Final payments will be due in April and May, and the dates vary depending on the program. program. Unfortunately, this year we will not be offering any summer abroad bursaries or awards for our virtual programs. However, since it is a summer course, we do encourage you to check with your registrar to see if there's any awards or bursaries that may be applicable. If you are eligible for OSAP, you could also apply for an OSAP extension if that applies to you. So basically, this is on our website, and this is the fees and the costs for participating in this program. So as I mentioned, there's a $200 fee that is paid on the time of application. There is a course fee. So this is basically the cost of doing the course, as well as any virtual field trips that are included. For cinema studies, it's $1,600. For international students, it'll be $2,755. And for FAH and ITA, for domestic students, it's $1,800. And for international students, it's $2,955. As this is a U of T summer course, you are required to pay U of T incidental fee. And this is $161. And this is estimated fee based on summer fees of 2020. So the approximate total for domestic students is anywhere between $1,900 to $2,100. And for international students, it's roughly about $3,100 to $3,300. And again, all this information is on our website. So just to recap the next steps, we're actually at number 2 right now. So our program information sessions are just about to end. March 1st, again, is our application deadline. By late March, early April, you get admission notification. 1 week after admission notification, your $500 fee is due, and your remaining fees are due in April and May. And then, of course, your program will start, in this case, in August. Now, I want to invite Brianna, who did our Italy program. Brianna did our program in 2019. She's just going to chat very quickly about her experiences and her thoughts on taking a virtual course this summer. So Brianna, the floor is yours.
My name is Brianna, and I did the Italy program back in 2019. So that was in between my second and third year. I took a cross-cultural perspectives on leadership course. So it was an elective for me. And I think one of the great things about summer abroad is that it lets you have a full credit UT course in the span of 5 weeks. Whereas if we had traditionally taken it on the UT campus, it would have taken 8 months. So it definitely lets you kind of fast track. I guess one of the good things about it as well is that because I had classes from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., Monday to Friday, I was just really focused on one course and one course only. And that made learning it, I would say, more easier because the prof was so passionate about what she was teaching. She knew things that about Italy and about the topic that I wouldn't have discovered on my own. It made learning it so much more engaging. In terms of like the friends in the classroom environment, my class had about 20 students. So it was very small and I was with the same students every day. So I got to really meet people and make friends that I'm still friends with today. I think you can't really find that in a traditional UT classroom because sometimes like the classes are 100 to 200 students. So I know the course is virtual this year, but I would say like definitely like from the first day, try to form like your study groups, your friend groups, make a class chat on Facebook or whichever platform you use because it really helps to have that support system. And I guess like even after like post-COVID, it's something to look forward to when you get to meet the friends that you do make through the virtual course in person. I can talk a bit more about like the workload. I know it's like kind of like intense and it's something that I was intimidated at first, Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. But once you are in the course, you actually get to see that because you're learning so much and you're so immersed, it makes doing the work that much easier. Because the class size is small, you do really get full attention from your prof. So if you have any questions, you can easily like ask just because everyone else is on the same boat. It's small, it's not intimidating.
Thanks, Brianna. There is 2 questions here. You kind of touched on the workload. There's one question about the workload and class assignments and how you managed it with the course only being 4 weeks.
So how the course was set up for me was it was like about 3 to 4 hours every weekday. And I would say that as long as you consistently keep up with the coursework, do the readings, then you should be more than fine. It's definitely not as intense as how it sounds, like 5 weeks really quick. It's not as intense as how it sounds and you'll be more than fine. I think the workload is like the last thing that you'll be worried about. And you're going to find the topic because everyone has to apply to the course, right? Everyone is as equally excited about the topic as you are. So it's going to be definitely more interesting classroom discussions than a regular UT course that people are required to take versus this is something that you're applying to as well as other students. So it makes like the classroom learning environment that much more exciting and fun.
Perfect. Thanks. The next question is, what was the most interesting thing you learned in the course and that you still remember today?
I would say because my course was focused on like different leadership styles throughout time, throughout different places, I think the most interesting thing was learning about the Medici family, which is in Italy, and how much influence they had and the leadership style they practiced versus what we know today in North America versus like my own point of view of leadership. We also learned about like the Pope and the mafia, just different leadership styles, how you wouldn't think that it would be applicable or have influence or power over people in modern world today, but how it kind of worked during their time, their place in that moment. And it's something that I wouldn't have known or thought of had my prof not taught me about it.
That's great. I'm watching the Medici series right now, and it's very interesting. And the last question we have here is, are you still in contact with your professor and classmates?
Yeah, so especially like with the latter, like the classmates, because the class size is so small, it's like about 20 students. I made some amazing friends through summer abroad that I still keep in contact till this day. And I would say that the friends that I made through summer abroad, they were some of my closest from UT. Also, it helps because when you're in a summer abroad course versus when you're in a traditional UT course, most of the people that you meet on campus just naturally are people from your program. Whereas in the summer abroad course, I found that I've been able to meet and make friends from people from across all three campuses, as well as across different programs. So I wasn't stuck in my program bubble at UT as how I was before. So when I did go back on campus, I had friends beyond my program that I can hang out with and I can study with.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Brianna. I think that's all the questions that we have here. You could just stick around if there's any other questions at the end of this presentation, but we really appreciate your insight and sharing your experiences with us. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
So basically, this is the end of our presentation. If you want to know more information about the program, of course, there's our website. We have virtual program information sessions. Actually, next week for Reading Week, we are having an advising blitz where our student ambassadors, as well as our coordinators from our office, will be available for drop-in sessions. So if you're working on an application, have any questions, you're more than welcome to attend one of these drop-in sessions. You could follow us on U of T Abroad on Instagram, as well as book an appointment with a summer abroad advisor through our website. And again, we're available through telephone as well as through email if you have any questions. I just wanted to see if there's any questions here. If you have any questions for me or Brianna about any of the courses or application process, please feel free to ask now. How long does the personal statement have to be for the application? We do say a maximum of 500 words. I wouldn't worry too much about the length of your personal statement. We do have one very general question to help you frame that answer. But again, the length of the statement shouldn't be a problem if you just have to explain why you want to take the course and how you're going to prepare or how it's going to fit into your academic goals. So again, we do suggest a maximum of 500 words. I wouldn't worry too much about the length of the statement. What is the acceptance rate for the program? It's a bit different each year. It depends on each program and each course. So I can't really give you a percentage, unfortunately, and especially as this is a different timing and we're offering virtual courses this year, it's going to be a bit different as well. We like to say that most students do get accepted depending on the course. Again, each year is different. So unfortunately, I don't have that rate for you. But if you want to chat more about specific programs such as Italy, you're more than welcome to set up an appointment with us. Is the class size going to be larger this year since it's online, or is it still capped at 30-ish? Good question. We still want to keep that small class experience, even if it's virtual, because your cameras are going to be on all the time. There's going to be class discussions and participation that is enhanced with a smaller class. So yes, it won't be larger classes because it's virtual. We want to still cap it to 18 to 30 students. So that's a great question, but we're not going to increase the size just because it's virtual. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you so much for attending this session. We really appreciate it. We really hope that you do consider applying for this program. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.